F4B10 Dasar British di Tanah Melayu. So the first part of the chapter is about a bit of intro about the history of how the British came here. So we've learned all of this before in Form 1 to Form 3. Right? 1786, Francis Light in Pulau Pinang. 1819, Stamford Raffles in Singapore. 1824, the Melaka got British got Melaka from Belanda, and they had perjanjian Inggris Belanda. Sabah was ruled by SBUB, and Sarawak was by James Brooke. Okay, so this is stuff we should know already, right? But the bulk of the chapter is all about this. First part, economy traditional versus economy dagangan. What's the difference between these two kinds of economy? Okay, so first we look at economy traditional. Economy traditional is mainly made out of sara diri. Okay, so this is the stuff that people mengamalkan before the British came, since it's traditional, right? So it's kind of sara diri. Activity economy yang tidak menghasilkan lebihan produk untuk pemasaran. They don't make stuff to sell it off. They don't make extra stuff. They make it only as they want and as they need for themselves. Okay, so let's look at some of the ciri-ciri sara diri. Sara diri is mostly on small scale, easy and teknologi mudah, modal yang kecil, and buruh terhad. Right, so this is just the opposite of economy dagangan. We'll see that later. Another thing, if they ever had any extras, any lebihan of the hasil, they will use it for menukar barang, bayar zakat, kenduri, sedekah, hadiah, and sometimes if they had extra, they would keep it. Okay, the ones they will keep would be for penanaman bermusim, for example padi. So stuff that they will can't plant in other times of the year, and they need to keep to make sure there's food. Okay, untuk memastikan kelangsungan makanan. Okay, sustainability of food. And then we also have pasaran kecil. Okay, so some they would sell off, but very small. They won't have big dagangan and all that. So that's ciri-ciri sara diri. And examples of what they did for economy traditional was nombong, tanam, mengutip hasil hutan, dan menternak binatang. Right, so this is all that. And there's a few examples of the stuff that they planted and they menternak. For example, padi, ubi, pisang kelapa. For ternakan, it's the usual lembu, ayam, itik, kerbau. And all of the ternakan is usually just for keperluan keluarga. Right, they don't know on big scale. So that's that. And a few more extra stuff. The technology mudah, there's a few examples. For example, tajak, cangkul, tugal, and tenggala. So these are traditional tools for menanam. You can go check it out online. And then system perairan mudah. So they didn't have any fancy system perairan. They just used rivers and the rain. And then for menangkap ikan, there's a few other tools they used. For example, tali kail, bubu, and jala. So these are all traditional Malay punya cara untuk tangkap ikan. Okay, you can go check those out online. Search for images. So those are that. And then lastly, it's all about pembahagian kerja. So in economy traditional, the pembahagian kerja hanya ikut jantina dan umur sahaja. Right? So there's no specific organization. It's only based on your age and your gender. Right? And there's no pengkhususan kerja. So that's economy traditional. Now we look at economy dagangan. Right? So what is economy dagangan? It is kegiatan pertanian dan pelombongan yang melibatkan lebihan pengeluaran untuk pasaran. Alright, so it's all planting and mining, which is they make extra to sell it off for pasaran. So that's dagangan. Ciri-ciri is just the opposite of this. Okay, everything here was small, now everything here is big. Right, and now we look at economy dagangan before the British came. So there was actually economy dagangan before the British, which is mainly biji timah. Right, so mainly the Malay people who did biji timah was dipasarkan ke China, Japan, India. So they did do international trade, membuat gendang gangsa, senjata gong. So this is what else they use biji timah for, right? Because it's tin. They use tin for making bronze, senjata and gong. Kaedah melombong, for example, what the traditional way to use it is mendulang, right? An example of some people who the pembesar who mengusahakan biji timah is Long Jaafar, Engah Ibrahim, and there's a few others you can check in the book. And besides that, the kawasan for biji timah is usually near the sungai where diusahakan oleh buruh tempatan. Right, so this is biji timah before the British. However, when the British came, they started a new kind of economy, which is dui economy. Right, so when the British came, they menguasai pelabuhan, and because of that, wujud rangkaian ekonomi dagangan. So British focused a lot on economy dagangan the second time. Right, mostly in places where kaya biji timah and sesuai untuk penanaman getah. So biji timah and rubber are the two main economies that the British use. So we'll check those later. Right, as a result, a lot of Malay people who use economy traditional terpinggir. And after that, since the British focus only on Pantai Barat and Pantai Timur tidak seimbang economy. At the same time, there's also a lot of kemasukan buruh, for example, buruh China and buruh India, right? And at the same time, wujud dua economy. So what is dua economy? It's dua economy, both of these, secara serentak. So people had to work both of these kinds of economies. They still had to support themselves through sara diri, but they also had to work economy dagangan, right? So that's the types of economy before and when British came. So now we look at specifically the kinds of things they did. First, it's about pertanian, right? So sistem pertanian commercial. So commercial, what is commercial? It means pertanian berasaskan export, right? So pertanian commercial and pertanian berasaskan export is a sumber pendapatan utama British di Tanah Melayu. So the British used pertanian and export of pertanian as their main income in Tanah Melayu, right? And examples of tanaman commercial digalakkan oleh British is that during Maharaja Abu Bakar's rule in Johor, the British supported the tanam of gamber lada hitam yang besar-besaran using sistem Kangchu. What is system Kangchu? Well, we'll check it out later, right? And then pemodal Eropah and China menguasai pertanian commercial, because why did they favor European and Chinese investors? Well, modal, teknologi, konsensi tanah yang luas, and also tempoh pajakan yang lama. Okay, so they had this edge over the traditional people who own the land, right? And besides that, the commercial became tumpuan pemodal. So the British, so this is the kinds of pertanian that the different people menumpukan. So the British menumpukan to tembakau and coffee, right? So mainly tobacco and coffee. And the Chinese pemodal menumpukan pada ubi kayu, lada hitam dan gambar. Alright, so this is based on their own choices and where they're gonna profit from those. This is the general system pertanian commercial. Now we look at the biggest pertanian commercial, which is perusahaan getah. So the reason why getah was very big was because of revolusi perindustrian, as we saw in the previous chapter. There was a high demand for rubber. For example, cars, right? Cars, tires need rubber. So that's why they had a high demand, therefore they had a high perusahaan. Okay, so how getah came to Malaysia in the first place, the awal sekali, was it was planted in the halaman, the housing area of Resident Hugh Low in Kuala Kangsar sebagai hiasan. It was just a decoration plant. Okay, but later, one of the people who really influenced the expansion of getah was Henry and Ridley. He's a very famous guy. In 1888, he was elected as the Pengarah Botanical Garden in Singapore, right? So he was the head of the Botanical Garden in Singapore, and he had, so some of these usaha untuk meyakinkan para peladang untuk menanam getah includes, he had a few pameran, few exhibitions of getah, and also gave away free seeds of getah to the other peladang to encourage them to do getah. Right. He also revolutionized the way of menoreh getah, and he found the cara toreh getah ibidem. Right. So ibidem is the most efficient way of getting rubber from a tree, and the way it is, this is a bit of information in the book about the way to toreh it is bentuk tulang ikan kering. Ikan kering. Right. So that's Henry and Ridley. Now we look at a few things that happened to getah over the years. So first, permintaan meningkat. So why did the demand for getah increase? It's because the industry, these things increased, right? So these things demanded rubber. For example, in shoes, bicycle tires, and peralatan electrical appliances. This is the sebab why permintaan meningkat, and as a result, the price of getah increased high, melambung. And because of that, a lot of people focus on perusahaan getah, so daripada tumpuan. So that's permintaan meningkat. And at the same time, we also talk about modal asing. Alright. So a few external companies started to open syarikat perwakilan in Tanah Melayu. Right. So mostly these are companies who have headquarters in London, but they opened their branches in Tanah Melayu. For example, Harrisons and Crossfeed, Bowstate, Battery Estate Agency, Guthrie, and Sime Darby. And as a result, these companies opened a lot of new land. Right. So this is modal asing. And the British government really made some dasar to menggalak pemodal asing to come to Malaysia and invest in getah, right? So these are some of the dasar. Number one, they had kadar sewa tanah dan tarif cukai yang rendah. Okay, so low tax and low rental rate for the land for all the peladang who does it, right? So in 1905 specifically, they talk about a 4% dividend to all the companies who mengusaha getah, right? So this is a big menggalak for all these companies. At the same time, there was also a pengecualian cukai export for 50 years, right? So there was no tax for rubber for 50 years, which made it cheaper for people to export rubber. So that's dasar British. Now we look at infrastructure. So the British also built a lot of infrastructure for getah. Mainly dibina untuk menghubungkan kawasan pertanian komersial dengan pelabuhan dan pusat pentadbiran. Okay, so they link up the places where you plant getah to all the ports and all the places where they mentadbir. And we can call pengusaha sebagai comprador kepada penjajah British. Okay, comprador is people who help conquest, right? So the people who did getah was actually a large influence to the British government menempat di Malaysia. And then they also brought in a lot of pekerja asing, mainly from India. And these people would like to work for a gaji murah. And this helps solve the problem of not enough buruh. So we'll see more about buruh later on. And lastly, we talk about kemerosotan getah, right? The reason why the price of getah fell is because there was an economic crisis, the zaman kemelesetan ekonomi dunia, around the 1920s to 1930s. So in 1920, the price of getah jatuh secara berterusan. And then they had a plan to fix it, which is Rancangan Sekatan Stevenson. So Rancangan Sekatan Stevenson is basically the plan to menghadkan pengeluaran getah negara luar. So they basically ban outside countries from, not ban, but reduce the pengeluaran getah from outside countries to make sure that the price of getah from Malaysia or Tanah Melayu is high enough, right? And in 1934, finally, the price became more stable, right? Reason why is because of peningkatan permintaan dunia and kawalan negara luar, right? Because there was more demand for rubber in the 1930s, and also the other countries also had more control over that. Okay, so that's all about getah. Now we'll move on to our second biggest economic, which is perlombongan. Okay, so first there was penglibatan pemodal Eropah, right? So why did a lot of European pemodal come to invest in mining in Tanah Melayu? Because it had a very high untung, right? Very high reward. Untung yang sangat lumayan. Because there was a high demand antarabangsa. Okay, because we mine biji timah. Biji timah is tin, which is used for a lot of industrial activities, and also British libat dalam bidang perlombongan yang telah sedia diusahakan oleh Melayu. So there was already perlombongan biji timah di Malaysia, di Tanah Melayu before the British came, but British basically took over what was already going on. Okay, so awalnya a lot of pengusaha China were involved, right? So pertengahan abad ke-19, okay, this is before the British came, or like before British took over the whole perlombongan. Perlombongan was dikawal oleh pembesar Melayu, alright? And pengusaha China, a lot of Chinese workers came here to do lombongan, but they were still dikawal oleh pembesar Melayu. So these are a few examples of how the pembesar Melayu mengawal these people. Firstly, pengusaha China perlu dapat kebenaran pembesar Melayu. So the people needed kebenaran from pembesar Melayu. Pembesar Melayu memastikan hasil dijual semula kepada mereka. So make sure that the pembesar Melayu get back some dividend of the profit from the perlombongan, and also the Malays menentukan harga for the hasil, right? So this is how the pembesar Melayu mengawal the pengusaha China. Okay, and then pemodal Eropah datang, and the pemodal Eropah could really bersaing dengan pengusaha China and basically win over them. Why? It's because technology kapal korek. Okay, they had better technology, which is basically the mining machines, and they dapat menguasai this economy, and they changed the perusahaan from intensive buruh to intensive modal. Right? They could shift from, instead of having a lot more workers, they have a lot more a lot of money to invest in technology, right? And besides that, British supported the European pemodal because there's a lot of enactment and undang-undang yang digubal. Okay, so the British was interested in menguasai this whole thing anyway. Right. At the same time, the reason why pembesar Melayu was very weak in this is because many pembesar Melayu mengambil jalan mudah. They took the easy way, and instead of trying to keep and improve their things, a lot of them memajakkan lombong mereka kepada saudagar China daripada negeri-negeri selat. Right. So they memajak, which is they give the land in exchange for money. And the reason why they had to do this because they couldn't menyediakan modal yang tinggi. They don't have the money to do that, right? So this is all about perlombongan, and just now was rubber. So